We're moving so fast. This has been the criticism of faculty. We're content-driven and time-sensitive. We've got to cover 1,400 years of history, come hell or high water. And the best way to do that is to lecture. Don't tell me about this pair share, writing to learn. I don't have time. We can come back to this is a faculty development issue. And embedded in here also is not only the method of delivery. I shared with you yesterday when I came out of graduate school and I was to teach general psychology. After 6.5 years of getting narrower and narrower, it was a big adjustment. A criticism of our professoriate is that we teach our intro courses like they're going to become graduate students in our field, or even majors in our field, which, as you know, it's not true. They're taking for general ed purpose. I was stunned how many nurses, teachers, social workers I had in general psych. Even my examples had to change. This is all part of the faculty development issue. It's not only pedagogy, it's content, and I would argue for those places where faculty do advising, that is a whole area of professional development that we don't get at all in graduate school. Anyway, we can come back in more detail on that. And I'm not faculty bashing. You know I'm not saying that. I'm saying the problem is our graduate preparation of faculty for undergraduate teaching. And we're always finger pointing at our schools of education, not preparing our teachers, our K-12, P6, P-12. I'm sorry. They're getting off scot-free. I don't know, it's because we are on the top of the food chains. We're in an assessment-free zone up there. We can't assess whether our preparation in graduate school is actually preparing us for the roles we play as undergraduate faculty. Come on. I'm sorry, here's where I get this emotional thing here. Okay. There's a gap there. One faculty development called it a professional called it a schizophrenic experience. I guess for any psychologists out there, he really meant dissociative identity disorder. What we learn in graduate school and what we're expected to do once we enter the professoriate and teach undergraduates is a big disconnect. So all this talk about retention, this Tom's talk yesterday, the importance of faculty development, critical to this whole notion of promoting student persistence. That's a high-hanging fruit. It ain't going to be easy. Whether it's new faculty orientation, faculty development, revamping our reward system. Shut up, move on. Motivational roots. So I like the way Claire Weinstein, the one who does the LASSI, she talks about skill, will, and strategy. We did the skill and strategy, right? Do they have the basic skills? Do they know how to learn strategically, even if they have the skills? That could hold them back. But then there's the will, where you have students with the skills and with the strategies, but they just are not getting their mojo working. They just do not see they're not motivated. I'm going beyond just the lecture method. These are students who come in excited about college. I'm talking about students now who may not even buy into why they're in college. As you can see on the couple of subpoints. They have low commitment to college in general or to the specific college attended. ACT study 2009, asking student retention specialists across the country, and based on your hands-on experience with students, what are the #1 causes of student attrition? #1, lack of motivation. It ranked higher than lack of study skills or academic preparation. So those in the trenches sense that if we can address this motivation issue, take developmental ed. It's, clearly you understand if a student is more motivated, they're more likely to persist through that developmental program rather than give up. So clearly motivation is something that historically, we tend to think it's within the student, we can't do anything about it, but that's what I'm after here. Now, just a quick preview here. Lack of 2.1a, lack of will, thrill about being in college. I think, I lied, I'm going to plug Larry again. I think you had a slide last night about the economic advantages of a college education. That's got to be in all our orientation programs at first year. We have to show them those bar graphs. It's stunning. We're talking about over $1 million, not to mention benefits. And if you've seen Pasquarello and Terenzini's work, I can send you this slide. It's a summary of all the non-academic economic benefits of a college degree. Health, wellness, job satisfaction, marital satisfaction. Maybe they choose more wisely their first mate. And the transgenerational, you got to go to bed thinking, this came up, when we work with at-risk students, we change their lives, we're changing 3 generations, right? It's a trickle-down effect. Their kids are more likely to go to school. The subtle, non-academic, all around the wellness wheel, that's what I'm saying. Economic is one thing. Now, I know you have students who I can make 60, I was just in Texas, we can make 60,000 in the oil fields. Well, I go to college. Well, that may be true. Are we articulating the non-economic benefits of a college education anywhere in the curriculum? I'm not going to say these kids are not motivated about college until we step up and say, let's show them the numbers, both economic, and show them the success stories. Can we please use our alumni for something other than squeezing money out of them? I mean, they can be our best representatives of what a college experience, a degree could be, particularly for students who can identify with those alums. I'm talking about underrepresented students who see someone they can identify with, see what a college degree has done for them. Can we bring them back to orientation or student success courses? We can show them the numbers, but can we show them the people too, the real people? And show them those English majors and history majors who have thrived. If that's their passion, not to give that up. You're not going to be a starving artist necessarily, particularly if you combine that with an internship and networking and good career preparation. It hurts me when I see students give up their passion because they're afraid, and their parents too, are afraid that it's not going to lead to gainful employment. We need to articulate that better. And why is it that pre-professional programs have all the internships? If anyone needs an internship, are the liberal arts majors. I think we need to be more aggressive about that, encouraging our English and history majors to build into their, you do educational planning, I would argue it's not only the coursework ahead of you, but what experiential learning should be part of your educational plan, whether that be in the form of internships, undergraduate research experiences if their plan is for graduate school, or maybe even service learning or volunteerism can also double dip as a career preparation component. Anyway, if you want to know more about that, we can come back. 2.1b, we call it in California trading up. I don't know if you have this at your community colleges too. We know nationally, and I believe I talked to some at the transfer table, lunch yesterday, that students who complete their general education program at the 2-year college before transferring, rather than trying to transfer after a semester or a year, in general are much more likely to persist to the baccalaureate degree. Our students in California can't wait to get out, to get to a real college, to get out of the community college, where they're getting more personalized instruction, better support. I want them to complete all their general ed with us before moving into a more research-oriented and, frankly, impersonal university environment. Can we articulate our community college people here, the beauty of the community college experience, the teaching orientation, the student-centeredness? And I told you, some of you yesterday, I've had the opportunity to go to different countries and ask them about different countries, just 2, Canada, Australia, well, and Belgium. That's it. About what they think of American higher education. And they're just amazed the access that we've always given our students. They are impressed with our community college system. They're getting suspicious that we have access, as you know, without success. But you are the Statue of Liberty. It's democracy at best, at playing out at best with the community colleges. But even among our 4-year colleges, we have this thing, I know it's true in New York as well. I want to get to a prestigious, they will even do lateral transfer. What's my point here? Is there anywhere in the curriculum or the co-curriculum where we articulate the mission and uniqueness of our institutions? I think in business, I'm not a business guy, so I can't even wear a suit. It's terrible, isn't it? I'm sorry, I grew up in the 60s. No guilt trip for people with suits. It's just been a thing. Where was I going? Oh, I think they call it post-purchase marketing or the second sale. It's like we have to get in the habit of we recruited these students. Now let's re-recruit them to be sophomores. We have to re-recruit the first year class, not retain them. We have to, and that re-recruitment implies a little bit more aggressiveness. Remind them why it's good to be here. And if you have any students who've transferred from your place, from somewhere else, you know where I'm going with this? Sometimes they are your best spokespeople. You know, you think you got a parking problem, you should remind them is that. You think it's impersonal here? And I have discovered that in our first year seminar. I started to bring those students in. I don't know what you would call them, reverse transfers or transfer-ins, as opposed to transfer-outs. My point is here, let's build pride. Ku himself, if he were here now, he has done research. If a student can articulate what's special about where they're at, they're more likely to stay. If they can articulate the mission, what makes your place different? Simply going around and asking students on campus, his research suggests that improves persistence. Okay? Guys, if you need to use the restroom or anything, I won't be hurt. Come and go as you like to go, need to do, as biology calls. 2.2, are you with me? I got my eye on the clock. Aaron, I know we've got to make up some time. But I feel less pressure today than yesterday. I was nervous all day about getting you out in time for the darn game. It was like backward design gone wild. That was driving everything. Okay. 2.2, I think I got ahead of myself. We need to show that the academic life is relevant. I would argue that we need to be intentional about general education being career preparation. I shared with the groups yesterday, it hurts me when I hear students and advisors say, let's get this out of the way. Let's get this general ed out of the way, you know, then we can get into your major. Why are we getting it out of the way? And as I said yesterday, I don't want to be redundant, general education is career preparation today more than any other time in history because of all the job changing we talked about. Yes, George talked about. What's giving them mobility? Look at us. Is this our major? Did anyone major in student success? What has enabled us to do this? To me, it's the general education component of our experience. We learn to write, we learn to speak, we learn to problem solve, we learn to reflect. Social and emotional intelligence. It kills me when I hear 21st century skills. Now, I don't want to sound like an old, curmudgeonly Luddite, what do you call those people who are anti-technology and anti-everything? Luddite? Yeah. But yes, I know we need to use the sexy term, but when I hear 21st century skills, I'm thinking this is what liberal arts has been telling us all along. We need those transferable, durable, problem-solving, thinking on your feet, cross-contextual, cross-occupational skills for lifelong learning. I hear 21st century skills. I hear general education or liberal arts. And please, let's make them realize that liberal arts has nothing to do with politics and changing their political point of view. It's emancipatory. We're giving them the freedom. We're giving them the skills that are going to give them freedom for life, career mobility, to be able to think for themselves, independent of the influence of authority figures. It's very much, as you know, tied with the American democracy. Jefferson argued that in a democracy where we choose our leaders, we need an intelligent citizenry who can choose their leaders wisely. Liberal arts and democracy go hand in hand. And students love that because they're into that freedom, particularly the 18-year-olds. They're free at last. They're moving away from home. So that whole freedom thing really works well through the back door as well. And failure to see the connection between their current college experience and future goals. I strongly recommend mapping. I think Larry pointed to it yesterday. Doing an educational plan. Lay it out for them. Even if it's to confirm what they think they're going to do or to open their eyes that this may not be a good fit for them. That forensics does involve a lot of science. That they don't even realize the steps it takes to the goal. You know, I looked up the origin of the word success, and it comes from the same root as succession. They need to see the steps. Let's do some mapping early. And that would include not only the coursework, but what experiences should they have along the way that could help increase their marketability. And I know our students are career-minded. But I'm not fighting that. I'm going to play with that. You're career-minded? That's why you need general ed. You're career-minded? That's why we need to do this educational plan. I want to make sure that we get you where you want to go, or help you clarify where you want to go. Aaron said that in opening yesterday. We want to meet, what is success? Meeting students' educational goals. That's one of the most common definitions. But A, we have to know what those goals are. That's where appreciative advising comes in. We have to have somewhere where we ask them, what are your dreams? What are your goals? And in some cases, as Aaron mentioned, we have to help them clarify what those goals are. They don't know. You know how much major changing goes on. They need some help. And do you really expect an 18-year-old, particularly those, to have their whole life figured out? You've seen the research on the human brain, how long it takes for the frontal lobe to mature, particularly in males. And no laughing, please. We're always behind. You reach puberty earlier than us, and then you live longer. It's not fair. But the frontal lobe, seriously, it's not like these are irresponsible youth, is what I'm saying. They just don't have the cognitive hardware yet. That's why teenagers do those wild and crazy things, some of which I have to admit I was guilty of. What was I thinking? Well, that wasn't mature yet. Now I have a headache in the front from social and emotional roots. I just want to say this, and I just made a note, all you student development professionals out there, let's start calling it the co-curriculum. You're equally important, and I'm not saying this because it's the politically correct or socially sensitive thing to say. I really mean it. The data are there. That big tome, Pasquarello and Terenzini, who referred to as the Pizza Brothers, if you remember, the evidence is so strong about the power of the co-curriculum. There's a lot of learning going on outside the classroom. And as you know, it's also very powerful for retention. And furthermore, remember, these are not independent. If they're not doing well academically, we can't even assume that their poor academic performance is due to skills or strategies. It could be to what, I don't know, academic interference, if you would say, from social and emotional elements of their life. You know, I've seen it all. Depression, eating disorders, boyfriend-girlfriend problems, family insisting on a major that the student did not want to major, and the student was sabotaging intentionally, doing poorly just to show them, I'm not going to be a business major. The guy wanted to be an artist. And that only came up in an advising session after we had built rapport and all the stuff we talked about yesterday. But the role of counselors, I don't see a lot of that when I go to retention workshops. Personal counselors, peer mentors, not just peer tutors, but peer mentors that are broader in scope, right? That deal with general transitional. I'm not saying they're going to solve the problem, but they know how to refer, well-equipped, just like we have that. Oh, poor Larry, I'm giving him some, his ego is getting, his head's not going to be able to fit through the door jamb on his way out. But you had that picture of the student at the information center at the University of Iowa, my alma mater, by the way. That could not only be for where do you go for technical information, but where do you go if you have a problem? And you know, students will go to other students before they will come to us. We need to harness the power of the peer group, particularly not just for tutoring, but for social and emotional issues as well. And 3.1b, competing social influences or commitments outside the college community. It's a mantra in the retention literature, particularly for first-generation students. We're not just retaining the student, we're retaining the family. This came up in George's talk. It may be more than a family newsletter. It may be family orientation. There's a school in Kansas, I hate to mention Kansas today, but where they actually have a orientation course for parents that parallels their student orientation course. You know, where it's like extended during the first term. And some of our family, they could be potential allies. I'm a little tired of this helicoptering thing. I know they can overdo it. But on the other hand, my wife's in elementary school. She'll tell you, I want parents who are concerned about how their children are doing. I want parents who are concerned about how their college students. I just want to be able to steer it into a productive way. I don't want them to dominate. I want them to support. I don't want them to sabotage. I want them to work with us as allies. So we can come back to that. Certainly the notion of outside forces like family, and how do we get them on board? And then there are emotional issues. You know that. I slipped already and said, I've had students, when do most mental illnesses strike? Yes, you have infantile autism, but you know how it goes. They strike in the late teens, early 20s. Some of it is a genetic timetable. It's just delayed genetic effects, coupled maybe with the stress of leaving home and demands of being responsible adults. But many of our students will have their first bout of depression, their first bout of anxiety. That's the nature of mental illness. And I'm sorry, I think counselors play a critical role here. I'm arguing what Aaron likes to use the word holistic. That's what I'm saying now. We have to support the whole student. The support for that is, what's the word? Incontrovertible, unassailable. I'm struggling with my vocabulary. Would this make sense? I mean, I see it, Hunter Boylan, the developmental education has to be holistic. Gardner, the founding father of the first-year experience, their University 101 course is holistic. It's not strictly an academic seminar that deals with the whole person. And there was another, well, and retention is holistic. As I alluded to yesterday, most students leave college with the eligibility to return. They're leaving for other issues. And if we don't address those issues, we're not going to address the retention problem. I'm not saying academics is not important. And all the academic support professionals out there who work with their habits, their learning strategies, tutoring. But you know, there are issues that come up there that underlie and also affect their academic performance. Yes, they need the skills and strategies, but we have to attend to them as whole persons. And we have to get to them early, because the first year is both the spills and the thrills. As George said, they learn most about diversity, and in general, most, if you look past Pascarell and Terenzini, if you had to pick one year in the college experience, well, yes, they're most vulnerable to attrition, but where most learning occurs and growth, it's the first year. And so we need to do this proactively, proactive outreach. And you know, I'm really wondering about this legally. You think, remember the Virginia Tech situation? Well, no, we're not going to get involved with that. We're not going to, and it led to that shooting. And you've heard of campuses being sued for not intervening sooner. We've always had this, don't get involved, we're going to get sued, but the opposite may be true. If we don't reach out, we may be held accountable. Their parents of that boy at Virginia Tech were very upset that nobody on campus contacted them. They knew he had this history. Back to the point of family involvement in the retention movement. Then financial factors. How am I on time? I want to make sure I give you time to talk. Am I okay, Aaron? We go 10 is... You know, in the 60s and 70s, I remember finances not being an issue. It was an access issue. Do students have enough money to go to college? In fact, if they checked financial problems on their exit interview, you know, you were skeptical. That was one of those socially acceptable reasons. That's not true anymore, as you know. Finances now have become a retention issue, not just an access issue. With increasing college cost, decreasing grants, increased reliance on loan, nationally, moving from, and I think, boy, Larry, here we go again, to merit-based as opposed to need-based financial aid. This isn't a solution to the retention problem where I go, let's get better students, give them more money. So we solve the problem in the I, the student input, not in the environment. And given our nation where we are now, does that make any sense to you? Our demographics suggest we need to change to meet the changing demographic. I don't know where all these wonderful students are coming from. We've got to get better students, ramp up our admissions. Now, I'm not saying that in some cases maybe a little bit of a bump is needed, and those students who are failing may need to be redirected to community colleges with the agreement that I'm not saying that. I know that, but I'm talking about U.S. News and World Report chasing. You know, we want to get more selective, and retention is also on the U.S. News and World Report criteria, so you kill two birds with one stone. You can get points for being more selective, and you can get, of course, selectivity and retention go hand in hand. And this is, you know, so when I see Kentucky saying, no, we're going to dig our feet in here and do something with the students we get, rather than trying to screen out the undesirables. And, you know, I said this yesterday, I don't want to beat it to death. We have to have a new definition of what we mean by institutional quality and prestige in higher ed. We define it here by who we let in, rather than what we do with the students that we do let in, and the type of students we turn out relative to the way they were when they came in. What is learning anyway? Is learning not a change in attitude, behavior, or cognition as a result of environmental experience, i.e. college? To me, those of us who are working with the most at-risk students really are in the position to produce, you know where I'm going with this, the most change, the greatest gain. And if we define quality that way, it would completely reverse our definitions of quality, which is selectivity is quality. Go congratulate the admissions department. They did a wonderful job. What the heck we did educationally once they got there is irrelevant. I want to change that. I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to get into that. Now, I did bring a, you know, this financial thing. Kentucky is the only state. I did read your strategic plan. Yeah. Here's what, Aaron, you might need to help me on this if these are operationalized. Policy objective number 5, decrease financial barriers to college access and completion. This is from 2011 to 15 strategic agenda, Stronger by Degrees. Number 1, increase funding for the state's need-based student financial aid programs and ensure they address the needs of part-time, transfer, and adult learners as well as traditional students. Bravo. 5.2, advocate for sufficient state operating support, financial aid, and campus efficiencies to reduce pressure on tuition. Cost of a college education is far outstripping gains in, what do we call it, cost of living. Thank you, Tom. Tom's always my ally and help me on these things. 5.3, support Pell Grants. Grants are different than loans, right? First generation students are you've heard of the term, quote, loan aversive. Even if it's a good loan, as opposed to getting a loan to buy a car and it depreciates as soon as you mention, boy, Larry, your ego. The investment, college is an investment, but the notion, support Pell Grants, the simplification of FAFSA, isn't that, is it me or that is hard? I like to say, I'm sorry, I'll walk you over to financial aid. I can't figure it out. When my son applied to college, I couldn't figure it out. With my wife, who's really the money manager in our family, we had trouble with it. Support Pell Grants, simplification of FAFSA. As you know, many first-year experience courses are now incorporating these into the actual course itself under money management, fiscal literacy. I think that's a good move. College savings programs, college work study, tax credits, and other federal aid initiatives intended to maximize student access, and I like this word, success. So it's not just getting them in, but financial aid that's going to keep them in. And 5.4, increase students and families' understanding of the net costs of going to college and the availability of financial resources to assist them. I think that's all great stuff. And you're taking the bull by the horn. Larry, you mentioned yesterday that student who was going to drop out for $500. Was that it? Do you have emergency loan programs for students? Does Florida State, Larry, could that student get an emergency loan? How many have such programs, can I ask? And those who don't, I don't know if it's viable. Sometimes if we can just get them over that hump, that's just what they need at that time. And it was just a quick thought here while I had you. 4.2, time spent working for money interfering with the time spent working for grades. You know, I know that Academically Adrift talked about how much partying they were doing. Well, I don't know what students they were talking about there. I have some problems with that whole academic adrift thing, to tell you the truth. But I have students, they're not partying. They're just working. And you know what the research shows? If it gets over 20, near 25, it starts affecting their GPA. And if it gets over 30, then it affects their persistence. And of course, who's the most at risk